crew.
The 9 Years Podcast.
Alright everybody, and welcome to the 9 Years Podcast with myself, Nick Draper, and as always joined by Stuart Deakins. It's episode 89 of the podcast this week, and 1989, Stu, was the year, would you believe, that the Nintendo Game Boy was first released. Did you have, or have you ever had, a Game Boy?
No, I didn't really. No, Nintendo wasn't. I was more PlayStation than Nintendo. Wasn't really a Super Mario fan or anything like that. So, no, I missed the Game Boy.
Yeah, I was a Sega person before the PlayStation arrived, but I did have a Game Boy. So I didn't have any of this N64 or any of that business. But I did have a Game Boy. I remember very first game I had on that was some form of wrestling game. WrestleMania, was it?
Never.
I think. Yeah, there's only 4 wrestlers you could actually play with, so it wasn't the best, but never mind. We have a lot to talk about this week, a lot of things to discuss, so we're not going to hang around this week, are we? Straight into top 7 lists.
Yes, definitely. Cool. So I thought, as it's the end of the season, and it's always a chance to reflect, isn't it? And what I thought I'd do is my top 7 League 2 players that I've sort of seen this year and probably been around the league. Doesn't include any Wimbledon players, not because they're not good enough, but because I thought that'd be a bit biased and it probably wouldn't have any other people in other teams. So what I've done, I know we normally do top 7 in no particular order, but I've picked 1 goalkeeper, 2 defenders, 2 midfielders, and 2 forwards.
So like a 7-a-side team.
Yes, that's right, a 7-a-side team. So, goalkeeper, I must admit, I was majorly impressed by Connor Ripley on Sunday for Oldham, and I can see now why he's been given rave reviews. My 2 defenders are David Wheater for Bolton and McLaughlin for Fleetwood. And my 2 midfielders are, you'll probably be surprised if I'm, but Ricky Holmes for Charlton. I think he's had an amazing season. And the little Messi from Walsall, the Walsall Messi, basically, Zuma. And then my 2 forwards are Billy Sharp from Sheffield United, who I was really impressed with when I saw him play against us, his movement. And also another player that I was really impressed when he played against us was Ian Henderson for Rochdale, who I thought was brilliant and has weighed in with a lot of goals for Rochdale and is a big reason for a lot of their success this year.
And with the exception of maybe Ricky Holmes, all of those players have been very important as the season's transpired, hasn't it? Oh, maybe not Otsuma, to be fair. Walsall have been pretty much mid-table. But the rest of them...
Yeah, Otsuma does play when he plays against us, he's a midfielder he does class the midfield, but he does play in behind the front too sometimes. Ricky Holmes, I was really impressed with him. I was thinking of players like Jay Spearing, who I think I've been really impressed with this year at Bolton. But yeah, I thought Ricky Holmes against us for Charlton, his free kick he scored, and generally I think he's just really come on leaps and bounds for potential he showed when he was at Chelsea. I know we love to hate him then, but I thought he was brilliant against us.
Fair enough. Good list.
Cool. What's your list, mate?
Well, mine isn't quite as, shall we say, analytical or interesting as yours.
No, I'm sure it is, mate.
Well, as you know, we played Oldham on Sunday, final game of the League One season. Old Ham, as they might be referred to. So I have gone for my top 7 meat-based football clubs.
Go on.
Are these in alphabet? No, they're not in alphabetical order. They sort of are, but they're not in the end. But anyway, it doesn't matter. So, in full, we have Black Poultry, Partridge Thistle, Port Vale, Queen's Pork Rangers, Roch Quail, Turkey United, and then finally, for the vegetarians out there, Bournemouth.
I worry how your brain thinks sometimes, mate.
So do I.
Long live Alexa Bliss. The one, the only goddess of WWE.
Lots to get through this week. We're going to investigate or discuss the long list of players that will be leaving us now the season's finished. I was going to say leaving us in the summer. They've left us already, to be honest with you. And players that might well be on their way as well. Alongside that, we're going to look ahead to the final bits and pieces that need to be tidied up for League One for next season, including our picks for the playoffs. who's coming down for the Championship, who might be coming up from League Two in their playoffs as well. Got an interview with Herbie Knott, lifelong Wimbledon fan, who was undertaking a charity bike ride along with another group of Wimbledon fans. So we're going to have a brief chat with him too. But to begin with, I have a teaser for you, Stu, as we begin our review of the Oldham game.
Okay.
Who was the last player to score a goal for Wimbledon this season?
Wow, it's so long ago. Obviously, the last goals we scored were against Rochdale, and I'm trying to think now, Lyle Taylor must have had one of them, so I'm thinking Lyle Taylor.
He did have one of them, but it was not the final one. The final one was a penalty.
Which would have been Dean Parrott.
It was indeed Dean Parrott. Now, that was back in March. Obviously, we did not score a goal in April, and actually, researching the statistics, across March and April, we played 12 league games. We scored 6 league goals. We only actually scored in 3 of those 12 games. So for 9 of our last 12 matches, Stu, we have failed to score. The last time we scored away from home was Bolton on the 4th of March. And we have ended the season with the longest run without scoring of any team in League One this season. 610 minutes, I believe. On Sunday, we were very unlucky, it must be said. I think we did everything but score. You've already mentioned Connor Ripley in the Oldham goal, but a number of blocks that defenders put in. We hit the post, we had one off the line, we had our own players blocking our own shots as well, unfortunately. Just seemed like it was meant to be that was going to be a goalless game on Saturday, on Sunday, of course.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? We look at the stats, 20 shots, 9 on target, so you'd think... You think 9 on target, you'd get a goal, and I think it was one of those games where I don't think we were ever going to score a perfect team move or a cross. I just felt to me if we were going to score, it was going to be a deflected shot or an own goal or a set piece. Do you know what I mean? It was never going to, because you just feel when your team is not scoring as many goals that they then start snatching at chances and overthink it and stuff like that. But when you look at the chances, the one where we hit the post and then Don Poleon just doesn't really get his head. It looks like he doesn't really want to get his head in where it hurts, that sort of thing. And yeah, that was more like a Tom Elliott would have been there. I think it was scored. And then obviously Don Poleon had a chance at the end where Lyle done a great cross where he sort of cut it back. And he literally just, I don't know what he does really. He tries to cipher it, doesn't he? And it hits his studs, and then the keeper just takes it easily from about 8 yards. I felt we just needed maybe us to shoot from distance and get a deflection or something like that. That was the way we were going to score, and it wasn't going to be a perfect goal.
You notice towards the end, Jake Reeves had a shot from distance that did have a deflection, did take a deflection, and it beat the keeper. It took the ball literally just wide, inches wide of the far post. And I think at that point you think it's really not going to happen, because even in that situation, the ball just doesn't fall the right side for us. But,
yeah. No, I agree. And the funny thing was, actually, we could have lost it to probably a screamer, couldn't we? With their left backs hit a shot that I think James Shea was just waving at as it went past him, which would probably have been a bit ironic if we'd lost that game through a goal of that sort of quality. But yeah, deflections, shots, just didn't even go for us.
Now, the final 6 games of the season, as we've already said, have failed to produce a goal for us. If you go back to that Rochdale goal, Dean Parrott scores the 3rd goal from the penalty spot, puts us 3-0 up with about half an hour to go. Do you remember what happens a couple of minutes after Dean Parrott scores that penalty?
Didn't we make a lot of subs?
There we go. We made a triple substitution.
That's the one.
So against 10-man Rochdale, of who we've just scored 3 goals against in the space of 5 minutes, we took off our front 3 completely. So
That's right.
Barcham went, Taylor went, Elliott went. Did that kill our momentum for that game? Well, it did on that occasion, because if you remember that last half hour, Rochdale did get a goal back, but they're probably actually the better team over the course of that last half hour. And then we've not, apart from Sunday, you can say, you never really got that attacking threat back, have we?
No, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Was that when we did we replace them with like Barnett, George Oakley? Was that the game we put George in?
I don't think it was Oakley. I think it was,
Poleon
Poleon and Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because to be fair, Neil Hardy doesn't normally put on 3 subs in one go, and he sort of did, and then I think we had potentially an injury late on where we were sort of playing with 10 men and stuff. Whether it killed our momentum, I can see why he made the subs, because we were going through a period of games, weren't we? So it was probably more sensible to do that. I don't know. I'm just literally going through. It's a worrying that we haven't scored away from home. Bolton was the last one we did that. That's more of a concern. We have had some tough games. And when we look at the league table, our away form before Christmas and some of the draws we picked up have actually just increased, giving us that point total, isn't it, and kept us away from relegation trouble. But to take the form we have of not scoring, I'm a strong believer you take your form into your start of your season. And I think we're both a lot of that opinion, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. But to look at the game with Oldham on its own, in isolation, a start for Alfie Egan. How do you think Alfie got on?
Yeah, really happy. It was good that he got a game. There was no pressure on it. And it was good the way that he linked up in midfield. And what I like about Alfie, and what I think we miss from our midfielders, is we've got someone that wants to get into the box and run beyond. And there was a lot of times then when he was the extra person in the box. And I think that's what caused the chance we had, because of course they had an extra midfielder to pick up and so forth. I can sort of see Neil Ardley's reservations that can Alfie play in a two-man midfield, because of course you can't then go and join in as much as that, otherwise you leave a massive overload in the central areas. So I sort of understand that. But then is it a case, if we've got a midfielder who can only play in a three, is it not better to play to a midfielder's strength rather than try and get him to do something he's not used to? That's the argument, isn't it? But I was really happy, and it was nice that he got substituted in a way to have a really good round of applause, because I thought he had a good game. He
was one of 6 youth team graduates in the squad for final game, which is good. 2 starting, Will Nightingale, obviously at centre half. Will, as we've said many times, Will just steps in there like he's been there for years, doesn't he? You don't really notice he's there, to be honest.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. Alongside that, we had 4 on the bench. Now, of course, some of these might now have disappeared, which we'll talk about later. But it was good to see the likes of Edgy Karja come on. He got a run out. Toby Sibic gets a run out as well. Jaden Antley and George Oakley didn't get an opportunity, but I think there's lots expected, certainly, of Toby Sibic.
Yeah, Toby. It's interesting with Toby, isn't it? I think Toby's obviously got his chance a bit more recently, because obviously Barry Fuller got injured. So with the right back, that obviously brought through. Toby, you could argue, was the third choice right back. George has filled in at right back now and then, not now and then, he's filled in quite a lot. But we've obviously played 3-5-2 as well. But Toby's interesting. I've been impressed with Toby when I've seen him in the under-18s. He's got long legs, if that makes any sense, but he just feels like when he's running, he's not really running that fast, but he is, because he's got such a big strike pattern. You can see him easily developing his centre half. It's interesting how he's got quite a lot of game time, isn't he, in terms of on the bench and that. And when I would have thought this season a player like Paul Cannon-Baye, who's centre half in the 18s, hasn't pushed through as much. Toby Sibic seems to have sort of stolen a march on him. Not in the same position, but, just being, I feel, got around the first team a lot more than what Paul Cannon-Baye has recently.
I may have made a mistake. I may have said that George Oakley didn't get game time. He didn't at all, because he wasn't even in the squad. I was thinking of Seth Owens, of course, who was the other player on the bench that didn't get an opportunity. So apologies to that, listeners. I could have edited that out, couldn't I, to save myself, but no, I'll fess up.
You could have, but I make a fool myself regularly on this podcast, so I'm sure the listeners won't have a problem with you doing it for once.
No, for once. It makes a nice change, doesn't it? Goalkeeper on the bench, Zanev, which last time I looked was, you see those adverts for that cream you put on your face that gets rid of cold sores or something. But,
yeah.
Do we know anything about this guy?
No. in a word, no.
In a nutshell, no, we don't.
Yeah, I don't try and say I know everything about Wimbledon, but I'm normally quite switched on with our players and our under-18s and our 21s, but no, I haven't. I've seen his name. He did play in the under-21 game against Peterborough at Mersham earlier in the week. So I have seen the name, but I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him whatsoever. I haven't got a clue.
A reason Joe McDonnell wasn't involved?
Again, interesting, isn't it? Because we're going to obviously not touch on, but we're going to look at the released players. Joe McDonnell doesn't feature in there at all, does he? So I understand that unless we've got some It's one of those ones. Is there still more conversations that Neil Ardley has to have with players potentially? And is Joe McDonald one of them? I wouldn't know why Joe wasn't available along with all the other players, but for him to be bombed out for him to play 2 games over the Easter period and then be bombed out completely, and a relatively unknown goalkeeper come in as a number 2 on the match day doesn't make sense to me.
No, it's a little odd, but there are a number of players in the squad on Sunday that may well be leaving us and are certainly leaving us, and we're going to touch on that shortly as well. Okay, so I don't think we've forgotten anyone. Just to wrap up then our final game of the season. We haven't done any 3-word reports this week because we're saving that for next week. You'll find out more later. But we did do the man of the match poll on Twitter, as we always do. It's a tricky one this week, actually, to whittle it down to 4 candidates. But in the end, the podcast team agreed that George Frankham, Andy Barcham, Alfie Egan and Lyle Taylor were our 4. And the winner, by 4 votes, was Alfie on 39%. The great thing this week, Stu, was we had 100 votes exactly. So I don't need to do any maths to work out how many votes each player got. So Alfie Egan 39, Andy Barcham 35, Lyle and George on 13 each. And I think we have to say, great game, really, George Frankham. I think for all the critique and criticism he receives, thought he had a very, very good game on Saturday and delivered a number of good balls into the box.
Yeah, and do you know what? I know we're wrapping up a bit about Oldham, but it's interesting, wasn't it? Because I felt the formation suited it better. And what I was saying about us being more active and getting more shots in, George is better in an offensive team than realistically being in a team that's under pressure. So what I mean by that is George's strengths are going forward rather than defending. That's very obvious to see. So I think because it was a case where he had a lot more ball in their area, we could then push him on and then get crosses in. And he played really well in that sort of sense. But I must admit, Andy Barcham was excellent on Sunday, and I'm not surprised Alfie got it because we're always going to go for homegrown players. That's just fans we are. We always go for our own. But there was them 4 players that reached our shortlist were all very strong on Sunday.
Other shout out I want to give for good performers on Sunday were the Oldham fans who came down in big numbers and were very, very loud throughout. Obviously, last day of the season, I think after the season they've had, they were delighted to get to the final day with nothing to play for. They had already done their job and got themselves safe, and their fans were clearly enjoying it. But fair play, Oldham. Thank you very much for your songs about a certain team in Buckinghamshire at the end of the game as well. That was very well received. And we look forward to going back to Oldham next season. An away trip I would definitely recommend if you've not done it before, albeit a little bit chilly, a little bit windy. Season is now over for us, Stu. You've been looking at some statistics over the course of our League One campaign, one of which fascinated me, the Fair Play League.
Yeah, so I'm always interested in this because we're not a dirty team. We never have been. I think we have a certain ethos around the club of being a fair team. We don't like to argue with referees. We don't like to back chat. We don't tend to get many red cards. So I was just interested to see what a Fair Play League was looking like. And we're talking off air, as they call it. And I was really surprised. I wasn't surprised to see where we were. We basically finished 3rd in the Fair Play League, so it means we were 3rd fairest team. From what I can see here, I think it's just league games, I believe. But we finished off with 63 yellows and 3 red cards. And they were yellow cards that then turned into a double booking. So I'm trying to think at the top of my head. I know Lyle Taylor definitely is one. I can't think of the other 2, but I know pretty much.
I will research this whilst you carry on talking.
So obviously it doesn't include the Paul Robinson one because that was a cup game, so that's why I said that. But the interesting thing I found was that the 2 teams that were automatically promoted in Bolton and Sheffield United, both were in the top 6. So Bolton were the 5th fairest team and Sheffield United were the 6th fairest team, which in League 2 when we were there, you always felt the team that was the team that beat you up the most were the teams. So we go back through the years of the Port Vales, the Gillinghams, the Stevenages, them sort of teams. They're the teams that really just kept hitting you all the time. It felt like a bit of a war. But it probably shows you actually in this league, it is a little bit more of the teams that are a bit more footballing teams and stuff like that. So yeah, we're 3rd. Interestingly, Bury were the team that finished the bottom of that league, which I don't think you really want to finish bottom of that league because it means you've got a lot of suspensions, etc. And the funny thing to note on that is that Tom Sawes, who obviously joined us from Bury, actually finished in the top 20 top most bookings on 13 bookings. So I don't know what Neil Hardy's going to make of that, really, Nick, to be fair, because we don't want teams... So we're interested to see what his disciplinary record is like next season.
Yeah, I think he picked up about 3 or 4 since joining us, on top of those ones from Bury, so certainly got that in him. In a centre midfield, you maybe expect that, but don't want to be keeping up with that record. Too many suspensions, he'd be missing too many times.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. We don't suffer from suspensions heavily. If you've got a small squad, then you don't really want to be having to have cover suspensions and stuff like that. So that's always a good thing. I understand why Neil Hardy wants that in a team, but even before that, Terry Brown and Dave Anderson still had the same mentality, didn't they? Do you know what I mean? So I think it's more driven from the board of this is how we want our teams to behave, and I understand that.
The red cards in the league this season. Jonathan Meads away at Millwall. Don't remember.
Yes.
Don't remember that.
I do.
Okay.
Wasn't there, but I remember it.
I have no recollection whatsoever. I have better recollections, because I was there for both of these. Lara Taylor away at Southend. Yes. I don't think the club were too happy with that one. And if you remember famously, Tom Elliott at home to Charlton for going into the crowd for the second booking.
How could I forget that?
Mm-hmm. And we all know what followed that as well. Where's this season gone? These things just... I forget they've happened.
Sorry, what followed Charlton? Sorry, you've lost me on that one.
Well, you know what happened at the end of the Charlton game.
Oh, sorry, of course. We gave a home welcome. We gave a welcoming welcoming party to a certain intruder on the pitch.
I think welcoming, was a goodbye. It was a leaving party that we threw for him.
Yeah, if you don't.
And he didn't react too well.
Let's hope he doesn't ever return, doesn't get a job anywhere else.
He's still got a job there, hasn't he?
Yeah, but hopefully he'll kick him out over the summer.
Okay, well, we'll see. But, okay, interesting. So remind me, Bradford, and who were the other team that finished above us?
Yeah, so Bradford were the fairest team in the league, and then Walsall were. Which
is strange, because those Polish teams, you know what they're like.
Yeah, but then they've got like a little Messi, haven't they? Do you know what I mean? I can't believe could never foul anybody because he would just fall over. We were third. Fleetwood, we were Fleetwood, Bolton, Sheffield United. Any surprises in? I'm trying to think of any team that we played this year that was particularly dirty. With Rochdale,
Sutton United. Oh no, that's right.
Rochdale were. Rochdale against us just seemed to. Remember, they picked up a lot of yellow cards, didn't they? And in the end, they got the sending off. But they finished. They finished 20th. They finished with 74 bookings, five yellow reds. So 5 double bookings and they were 3 straight reds. So yeah, I suppose actually they are pretty dirty, aren't they? But Gillingham, they finished third from the bottom of that league. So yeah, interesting.
Any other bits and pieces from League One that you noticed?
No, so League One, we look at, so if we go through top goal scorers, Billy Sharp, 30 goals. I don't know if I think I have mentioned this before, but James Vaughan at Bury got 24 goals in a team. Pretty didn't perform. And I don't know about you, but I didn't think he was that great against us. And we played him quite a few times this season, didn't we? But he still weighed in with 24 goals. The interesting thing really is like, the top scorers, I think is the top 20, top 20 or top 15 of the top goal scorers. We don't feature in it at all. It goes up to the last one on the steer was Morrison of Millwall at 11 goals. Our top goal scorer league-wise was Lara Taylor with 10. I think that says a story, doesn't it? We didn't score loads of goals, evidently, because we obviously had so many games without scoring, but we only got 1 striker in double figures, and that's obviously something we need to work on next season.
52 goals in the league, I think we ended up on. 52, which is just over 1 goal a game.
Yeah.
Look, it's got us safe. It's got us safe. Look, we can't really argue too much. We only conceded 55, which isn't a bad record at all. It's a pretty good record, actually. But,
yeah, and I think that's the story of it. I think what we've got to be looking at, it's like anything. Yeah, the negative is we haven't scored in so many games. But the positive is actually we've kept a lot of clean sheets. So we haven't had to be scoring goals to get points. We've actually just been keeping clean sheets. And yes, the 0-0s and stuff like that are pretty boring at home and stuff like that. But defensively, we have been reasonably solid, haven't we? So that's a good thing. It's interesting. We only scored 18 goals away from home, which is, when you look around where we are in terms of the league table. To give you an example, Gillingham, who just about survived relegation on the last day of the season, scored 27, Bury 25, Shrewsbury 20. The only team that, this is away goals away from home, the only team that scored less goals away from home was Oldham. Not a surprise, it was 0-0 on the weekend, but they scored only 12 goals away from home.
Wow.
But then if you look at their defensively,
yeah, exactly.
Connor, Connor Ripley got into my top 7 because I thought he was brilliant. But when you look at it, I think he had, am I right in saying that was his 18th or 19th clean sheet of the season?
Yeah.
It shows you what a massive job Oldham have got of actually replacing a lone goalkeeper, which you never know.
Always the danger, isn't it?
It is, and it might be something we need to encounter next season. You never know.
Yes, we should talk about that shortly. Right, before we do move on, I did mention earlier, I spoke to Herbie Knott on Sunday, and Herbie is undertaking a London to Amsterdam cycle ride. Rather him than me, I've got to be honest with you, along with a group of Wimbledon fans to raise money for prostate cancer research. Been a Wimbledon fan for over 30 years. And I spoke to him for a little while, actually, on Sunday, so I'm actually going to split this into 2 parts. This is the first part of my interview with Herbie. If you are interested and would like to know more about what he's doing, then you can go to his website, justgiving.com/company-teams/Wombles to Amsterdam. About 3 or 4 minutes chat, and we'll see you afterwards. You have been a Wimbledon fan for, as we say, 31 years now?
Yeah. The first Wimbledon game I came to see was Wimbledon playing Blackburn when I was photographing for the Sunday Times back in the 1980s, 1986. And got to know the players pretty well in the subsequent week. And then that summer went out to Germany with Dave Bassett and the Crazy Gang. Had a brilliant time photographing them whilst they were literally doing an army boot camp with machine guns to prepare for the First Division, the old First Division, now the Premier League. They were a fabulous bunch of people. Before that, I was a Man United supporter. From that point on, I have been a Wimbledon supporter, and will be till the day I die.
Imagine being a Man United fan and then becoming a Wimbledon fan. Who would do such a thing? But Chris, say nothing. Herbie, this summer you're undertaking the, I think, 100 or close to 150-mile cycle from London to Amsterdam to raise money for prostate cancer research. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're doing 145 miles from the Velodrome in London. There's 7 of us doing it from AFC Wimbledon. We go from the Velodrome to Harwich, and then we cross the North Sea on a ferry, and then go from the Hook of Holland to the Ajax Stadium in Amsterdam, where hopefully we'll all arrive in one piece.
So there's 7 of you in total going on this trip. Are they all, like yourself, you've been a Wimbledon fan for over 30 years, are they all Wimbledon fans as well, or are they football fans, or are they just people, fans, family? What's the situation?
They're all Wimbledon fans, and we're joining a team of other teams and supporters from all over the country, something like 500 in total. Some of them start from Barnsley up in the north and go to Hull and then over to Holland. We start from the Velodrome in London. And the aim is to raise as much money as possible. Last year, the total raised from this bike ride for prostate cancer was around about £500,000. We're doing pretty well. I know of 5. The total for 5 of us from the club so far is approaching £3,000.
Wow, blimey. What's the reason behind fundraising for prostate cancer? What brought you to taking this challenge on?
Well, as you probably observe, I'm of a certain age.
I wouldn't know to look at you.
I'm probably one of the older riders attempting this at 68. And I started cycling about 4 years ago. I enjoy it. But what prompted me to have a go at this, apart from the physical challenge, is the fact that I knew at the time we took the decision to do it, of 3 friends who'd suffered from prostate cancer. I now know of 8, and 2 of those, unfortunately, are no longer with us, and they were both in their late 50s. So, as well as raising money, I think it's incredibly important to raise awareness of the fact that prostate cancer kills people, and you need to get checked by your GP. If you're in your 50s or older, go to your GP and get a check. It's a silent killer until it's too late.
How can people donate to the cause?
If you want to donate to the cause, you can go to the Wombles to Amsterdam page on Just Giving. So justgiving.com/Wombles to Amsterdam. You'll find 5 of us on there. It's up to you as to who you choose to donate to. And if you click on our individual files on that page, you get our individual stories and you can see how we got on with our fundraising. So justgiving.com/Wombles to Amsterdam.
You gotta listen out for this gap. Insert a famous name, but don't flap. Something like Sebastian Coe, celebrity 2-word tango.
Sheffield United.
Sheffield Wednesday.
Everton.
Liverpool.
Ipswich Town.
Norwich City.
Southampton.
Portsmouth.
Crystal Palace.
Arsenal.
Wimbledon.
Tottenham.
Manchester City.
Manchester United.
Oldham Athletic.
Bradford City.
Leeds United.
Nottingham Forest.
Swindon Town.
West Ham United.
Watford.
Oh!
Do you know what? It's because I had West Ham up. I had West Ham lined up. And
Winner.
you threw me.
Winner.
Damn, you've made me say Watford.
Well, you must have been desperate then.
Well, because suddenly I was trying desperately. I couldn't believe I didn't say Fulham, by the way. The first team that came to my head when I was panicking when you said West Ham was Luton. And then I realised, well, they've not been in the Premier League, so where does my brain go? Luton, Watford, of course it does.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because one of our players had that problem this week, didn't they? With someone saying something just before them.
One of our players or several of our players?
Yeah,
I'm
being generous there, but
we did so many.
We did, but a certain player who will be Mr. Bullman did struggle early on, didn't he, with someone who said something before he did, and it totally confused him after only, 4th round, if that?
I think they got 14 names out and it went to pot.
Brilliant.
So basically we've been out playing 2-word tango with members of the squad and playing staff. They are the squad. And management team as well, of course. And they will be available over the course of the next few coming weeks, I guess, Stu, over the summer, over the break. So
they will, and we had some really good fun doing them. And trust me, you'll see it all. You'll see it advertised by the club, but there are some humdingers and ones that I'm still laughing at when I watch them back, even now.
Yes, so keep an eye out on the club's official social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and of course the official website and Don's Player. Loads of things going up, including what we expect at some point, Stu, our little diary of the Oldham game.
Yes.
Filmed by Mark Hendricks and edited by Mark Hendricks. Done a stunning job on it, so look forward to that. We think it's on its way shortly.
Yeah, and Mark's done a magic job because he's actually made he's made me look quite intellectual or used to film, which I'm not. I've got a face for radio.
I'm saying nothing.
No, done a great job, and hopefully people will be able to see that very soon.
Yes, definitely, so keep an eye out for those. And thank you very much to all of you that saw us filming and recording on Sunday and came up to us and passed on your good wishes and thanks and praise for the podcast. We do appreciate it. It means a lot when you come up to us and say that you're enjoying it. So Thank you very much for that. Glad that we are, I don't know, what's the word? Brightening up your lives in some small way. Does that sound a little bit egotistical?
What was that word?
Egotistical.
Oh, okay. I don't know what it means, but I'll go yes. I think it was really right. It was really nice, wasn't it? We had lots of people actually come up and say hello and say kind things. We had a lot of people, Tommy Warner, tell me how good the podcast was without me the other week. So thank you, Tommy.
Yeah, he wasn't the only one.
Yeah, people just seemed. Tommy was disappointed because there was no deaconisms, as he calls them, and the others just thought it was better without me being around. So thank you, Chris, and thank you, Paul Raymond, for making a good job in my absence.
Speaking of absence, see, it's like we write this, isn't it? It's like we actually write this. Speaking of absences, there'll be a few members of the playing squad absent from Kingsmeadow next season because they are departing. The list of squad players that have been released was announced on Tuesday, and there were a few little things in there from Neil Ardley that kept us guessing as well. So we're going to go through the list, see what we think about the decisions for these players to leave or potentially leave, and see what the future might hold for them. I mean, the first two, the big headline ones, I suppose, Stu, are the fact that Danny Boorman and James Shea will not be with us next season. We spoke earlier about the Oldham game. Danny Boorman substituted, clearly to give him one last final round of applause, I imagine, of appreciation from the fans, of which he did get, which was very, very nice. But we've said he's not the youngest anymore, and he has done a great service and has been a great servant to the club. He's been here for, 3 seasons, I think. Fantastic example. The hard work he puts in training, from what we understand, and also every single game, the shift he puts in. It's like you think he's 37 years old. He looks like about 25, to be honest with you, the way he gets around the pitch. Fantastic example to the younger players. And what do you think is next for him? Do you think he's going to go and maybe wind down somewhere a little bit lower down the pyramid, or maybe move into coaching? Got any ideas?
I sense that he will still want to play, because I think he wants to play. I think he's one of those ones that he will retire when his body tells him he needs to retire. And I'm just checking here the amount of games he played this year. He played loads of games this year. So let me just check on top of my head. 44 games. So he wasn't a player that was a bit part player this season. He was fully utilised. So I understand why we let him go. I do, but I think he will find a League Two club. I wouldn't be surprised to see that he finds a local club, because he doesn't tend to move, Crawley and stuff like that. He doesn't really tend to move too far. I think he's a bit more of a home person. Wouldn't surprise me to see him. I think if he drops into conference, the only team I see him dropping into conference playing for is someone like Leyton Orient, who may want him purely before his experience and depending on what the situation with Leyton Orient is this year. But I think he'll play on next year. Interesting, 127 appearances, 4 goals, which is interesting. I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you think of a favourite Danny Boorman goal? Can you remember 4 of the goals?
I can think that 2 of them were against Accrington Stanley away. I know for sure that one of them was against Luton.
Good memory. Good off the top of your head.
Can't remember the 4th one, unfortunately.
No, I can't. I did read it. But the best strike for me was Accrington away, when he hit it outside the area from a great Lyle Taylor pass as well, when he just knocked it into the bottom corner of that 4-3 game. But I just think, what, Danny, I do hear people, people speak to me and say, it doesn't do that much, and Neil Ardley seems to like him and favour him. But I think Danny Boorman's a player that when he's not playing, you probably realise actually how good he was. He did a lot of the work. He read the game very well. He covered Jake Reeves a lot when Jake was out of position and stuff like that. And I'm not surprised to see him go. Sad to see him go. But we lose a lot, especially in the dressing room, which I understand he's a really big influence.
Another big loss, James Shea.
Yeah, but I'm not overly surprised, if I'm being truthful. Again, great servant, 115 games. Where'd they go? Do you know what I mean? 115 games is some going. So he will leave us with a lot of league experience and will easily find a club. I hope he finds a club in League One. My gut thing is he'll find a League Two club chasing promotion, I reckon. I understand why we let him go. I said to you a couple of weeks ago, if I was going to look at him ranking him against goalkeepers in League One that I've seen, I probably wouldn't put him in the top 12, if I'm being truthful. And I think that's where we want to aim to next year. And from what it looks like, my gut feeling is we're going to go for a lone goalkeeper next year. If we are looking at finances are tight, because that's the most sensible thing to do. So I understand it, but again, great character, really always polite, always friendly, and this side of the season is always sad to see these players go.
You have to say he did a phenomenal job for us this season, coming in at that Charlton game, or at that Charlton game, for that Charlton game, that famous best away game of the season game, best away game ever game, away at Charlton, as you'll remember, best away game ever.
Of course.
Coming in for the departed Ryan Clark, who the infamous run he had with us, and really came in, didn't look like he'd missed a beat, really, considering if you think, he wasn't in the first team for a hell of a long time. If you think back to the previous season in League Two, was it that famous Morecambe game where we lost 5-2 at home?
Yeah, when he got an injury. He got an injury, didn't he?
Yeah, and then we started getting some lone goalkeepers in. Finally getting Kelly Roos, who obviously helped us get promotion in the end. But then he comes back in September, and does a remarkable job throughout the season. So we talk about our good defensive record this season. Can't really say what a great job we've done defensively without giving James Shea a tip of the hat to, can we? So
yeah, and you know what? And you're right. And it's not. And when I say that I don't think he's in the top 12 of goalkeepers in the league, that's not being disrespectful to his efforts, because you're right. You know, he had a lot of knockbacks, didn't he? You know, losing his place to Kelly Roos, not getting back in, then us getting Ryan Clark and then becoming number 2. And you have to say he fought like anything. Didn't moan, didn't make any distress signals, but fought really well. But I just think every season we try and progress, and I think if we want to progress, I do think we need to get a new goalkeeper. And I've said to you many times before, I think we should be tapping into these Premiership clubs that have 4 goalkeepers and are happy to loan one of them out. And, you know, the biggest example was on Sunday on Connor Ripley. There's obviously, don't get me wrong, there's not Connor Ripley's not out at every club, but we should be going for lone goalkeepers where we can probably get a subsidised salary as well and help put budget elsewhere in the team.
Where does that leave Joe McDonnell then? We mentioned him earlier. Is he one of the players that Neil Ardley's said to find another club? Is he staying? Is he going? What's happening?
Yeah, Joe, I think there's a few other things to happen. I think we may keep Joe McDonnell. Do we go Joe Bursick as a number 2 next year? Obviously, our under 18 goalkeeper, who's in the under 17 England Championship, Euro Championships over the summer. I think that might. I'd wonder whether we can keep hold of Joe Bursick, because once you get into England squad, you then become all of a sudden you'll notice, you know, he's the only non-Premiership goalkeeper in that squad. So if we keep Joe Bursick, then does that mean McDonnell goes? I don't know. If you read Neil Ardley's comments on the official site when he says about releasing James Shea, he's very much saying that they've, you know, it's something that they've been looking at over for a little while. So they obviously have a plan, which makes me think that we've probably been chucking out Simon Bassey to the under 21 scene, which he knows a lot about. So I don't know, if we get a lone goalkeeper in, it will be either Joe Bursick or McDonnell. Depends on if we don't lose Bursick to a Premiership club.
Other player that has been asked to leave or has been moved on is Chris Robertson. I was his away kit sponsor this season.
Were you?
What a lovely guy. I was his away kit sponsor this season. Lovely guy. Chatted with him the other night, but I think it was kind of left unsaid, almost the elephant in the room, that we kind of knew that he probably wasn't going to be with us next season. A lot to do with the fact that Will Nightingale was back fit in contention. And that's pretty much why Chris was brought in, if we're being honest, to cover gaps.
Yeah, he was, and we've got to be realistic next year. We can't, you know, we should be Paul Callenby should be getting near the squad next year. Toby Sibic gets near the squad, who I think Toby could turn to a centre half quite easily. We are just going to starve with our kids if we don't. You know, I don't think Robinson's done anything wrong, if I'm being truthful. I think, you know, if it wasn't for the fact we had Paul Callenby, Sibic, those players coming in, like I say, Will Nightingale, who's going to have a nice pre-season rather than being injured, then I think we would keep him, but. Yeah, I think it's just through circumstance that we've let him go.
Yeah, but we wish him all the best in future. Really, really nice guy. Did a great job for us in his short time here. As Neil says, just needs to get the game time, and we'd be interested to see where he ends up next season. He's pretty much down here, travelling a long way in, it must be said, currently, coming around the M25 to with his family, living about an hour and a half away, I think, if I remember correctly. So hopefully something turns up for him. 4 young players on the fringe of the first team squad that their time at AFC Wimbledon has now come to an end. I guess that comes when you get promoted and you move up the pyramid. We might move quicker than the development of our young players sometimes. I think we've seen that all throughout the history of AFC Wimbledon. So Tom Beer, George Oakley, Dan Gallagher and David Fitzpatrick all off to find pastures new. Any of those, or which of those, should I ask you actually, Stu, are you most disappointed by or most surprised by?
I'm not surprised by any of them. I mean, being truthful, I think when you loan players out, it says quite a lot. So if you think about it, we loaned out Tom Beer to Gateshead. He come back early. David Fitzpatrick to Torquay. Danny Gallagher went to Kingstonians. I think it was Kingstonians, wasn't it? Well, I've seen him before, but I think he did go to K's, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And George Oakley went to Wedding.
Yeah.
I just think when they do that, they don't get. Now, Dave Fitzpatrick to me was anyone that had a real good loan period, and Torquay didn't want to let him come back. And that's good. So you might find it depends with David Fitzpatrick. He's a local lad, but Torquay might raise their hand and come down again to us next season. That's quite a big move because that means that you're living in the middle of nowhere because Torquay is in the middle of nowhere. So he might have a club league next season. Tom Beer, not a surprise, but I'm disappointed because I was I was one that was really saying that Tom Beer could be our next one, really to progress into the first team, but for whatever reason, hasn't happened. I think he'll always be remembered for the home winner against Accrington. Let's be honest, that goal was massive, taking us into the away leg. But yeah, it happens. For every Will Nightingale, you're going to have a Danny Gallagher. It's just that's the way it is. That's when you bring kids through. Some work, some don't. That's why it's a gamble, but it's always a gamble, I think, that we're always ready to take.
Alongside those 7, then, transfer listed. The transfer listed category. Not officially been called this, but in reality, that's what's happened. Neil Lolly said, and this is a quote now from the official website, so he said, there are a few other players who have been told to move on because they do not have futures at this club, which is an interesting line when you consider he then go on to say, we will see going forward how that develops. If they cannot find other clubs, then they will still be Wimbledon players next season. Even though he says the sentence before that they don't have future at the club. It's a little bit awkward. Now, he's not named any of these players. However, I have a list of 5 names here, Stu, that I think might be those players in that boat. Acknowledging whatever the situation you've mentioned there with Joe McDonald previously.
Yeah.
What do you think? Just quick yes or no if you think I'm correct in saying these names, okay?
Okay.
George Frankham.
No.
Dom Poleon.
Yes.
Dean Parrott.
Yes.
Chris Whelpdale.
Yes.
Tyrone Barnett.
Yes.
So the only no there was George Frankham. You think he's signed up for next season?
Yeah, and the reason I say that is because he can play in many positions, and I think a player like George Frankham, I know he's a crowd. He's not a crowd. What's he? He's a player that just gets grief, because of what he does. But when you think he can play right back, he can play right wing or right midfield. He can play centre midfield. He can play a holding role. If we can go with a shorter squad next year, then I don't see why we would get rid of a versatile player in George Frankham. That's my gut feeling. But the other 4, yes.
Why? Chris Whelpdale, obviously, we know, has not had a great time with us. Injuries as well haven't helped him, so come to expect that. Why Dom Poleon? Are we thinking because just his form has dropped off in the second half of the season, yeah?
Yeah, and I think there's a few candid things that Neil Ardie said and Dom Poleon's acknowledged. One of the big things is that, if you remember when Lyle Taylor first joined, one of the things was, and Tom Elliott to a certain extent, was how we play. Neil Ardie doesn't expect a forward just to basically sit on the halfway line waiting for the ball to come to him. He wants them to work defensively, so defend from front to back. And that's in Dom Poleon acknowledged that was something that he was getting used to in terms of his words were how the gaffer wants me to play here. Neil Ardie again alluded to it, saying that Dom's got his game to work on. And my gut feeling is it hasn't worked because, it hasn't worked. When Dom's scoring goals, scoring goals camouflages what you're doing elsewhere on the pitch. When you're not scoring goals, then the work rate has to be of that standard. And Lyle Taylor, when he's not scoring goals, works very hard. And that's my gut feeling. I think it's really disappointing with Dom because you can see he's got such talent, but Neil Ardie does want a lot out of his forwards.
Which explains probably why Tyrone Barnett is potentially on his way. It just hasn't really worked for anyone, has it? That move. And Dean Parrott then. What's the situation there? He came on for the last 5 minutes on Sunday. A bizarre substitution. And we think he is likely on his way, especially reading between the lines of a Twitter post of his as well. So,
really,
why has it not worked for Dean Parrott?
I don't know. You have to. Neil Ardie is. Something has to be going on behind the scenes that we can all assume or make some suggestion or guesses, but we probably don't know for certain. But for way he plays on match days, for him then not to be involved and be on the bench and stuff like that suggests to me that something's not working behind the scenes. So whether that's his attitude, his application, his training, something's got to be there, because it doesn't make sense to us, does it? Because we see, he had 5 minutes on Sunday. You're right. It was probably the most awkward substitution going, wasn't it? To me, it sort of said, I'm going to put you on, he's had his end of season assessments, as he calls them. I'm guessing he said something to Dean Parrott, and he's probably put him 5 minutes of going, well, this is all you're going to get, really, unless you do what I need you to do. But in those 5 minutes, he went past 3 or 4 players, didn't he? In a run, and there's all the stuff that we know he can do, his set pieces, everything like that. Say, why is he not starting? But there's obviously something behind the scenes, because there's no sense why he's on the bench.
Which brings us finally onto 2 players that we have offered contracts to for next season, but we are expecting that they are actually going to move on. From what we understand, both players will be not with us, will no longer be with us next season. They have got better, well, not better offers, but you know what I mean. Offers that have turned their heads, or for other reasons, family reasons involved as well, they're probably going to take off. So those 2 players, as we know, are Tom Elliott and Sean Kelly. Sean Kelly, my most improved player of the season, during the season. Tom Elliott, you could argue, is also most improved from last season to this season, some of you might argue, but he was voted our player of the year, by the way, on Sunday, Tom Elliott. But we believe, and Stu, add to this if you know any more, he's going to be off to somewhere, either Bolton or Bradford are the teams that are rumoured at the moment. Sean Kelly seems a lock to return back to Scotland. I think he's had an offer from Hibernian, who have just got promoted to the Premier League. So we wish Sean Kelly all the best. Absolutely no problems whatsoever should he determine or decide to move back up north. But Tom Elliott, yeah. We can always replace Tom Elliott though, can't we? I don't think, if he does go, I actually don't think it's going to be as big a loss as a lot of our fans think it will be, which might be a controversial opinion.
Yeah, it is, because he just walked away with nearly every trophy that was available on Sunday.
He did. But over the course of the season, yes, okay, but he's replaceable.
Every player is replaceable. There's no...
This is true.
That's the thing that everyone says. Everyone player is responsible. Whether you want to be replacing that player is a different story. So, there's certain players that we don't want to lose. Tom Elliott being one, Lyle Taylor, Jake Reeves, those sort of players. You don't want to lose them. They're replaceable, but you don't really want to have to deal with that, really, if you can help it. Tom Elliott one's a really difficult situation. I've listened to his Don's Player interview, which is a really good interview, by the way, by Rob Cornell. So please listen to that if you get a chance. But I'm torn, because he said how overwhelmed he was that he got the awards. He said he loved the fans. We got Tom Elliott. Really got the game against Milton Keynes and really felt why he had to win that. Loves the club. If it was based, I think, on just the fact of staying the club he loves, I think he stays. I think from what we're hearing and what rumour goes around, and rumour's a horrible thing, that there's other factors involved on him wanting to go back up north. And yes, we do hear that Bradford and Bolton are teams that are interested. But I think for us, if I'm being truthful, we need to know quickly. I don't, and I think that's what, if you look at it, Neil's alluded to that we want to know quickly. We can't be affording Tom to be going, I don't know what we're looking at, mid-July. I think we need to know early so we can then recruit early as well. So And just to throw in something totally different than what people put on the fault, we have played long ball all season at home. I think we played long ball because the pitch has not been as good as we need it to be, and there's no disrespect to what the guys have worked behind the scenes, but it is a difficult pitch because of the amount of games we have on it. Next season, Chelsea come in, and my understanding is that the pitch is going to be at a certain length because Chelsea want that for their ladies to play on. I think it means...
Hold on, there's so much to investigate in that last sentence. Okay,
yeah, I said that,
so
yeah.
the ladies are concerned about length. Are we talking about the dimensions of the pitch or the height of the grass?
The height of the grass, sorry.
Right, okay.
Yes, of course, the ladies like it to be a certain length, of course.
Of course.
So my to bring back to my train of thought is I sense that we may play a different style of football next year, which may not result in us being around a target man, if that makes any sense to people. So, Chelsea can come in and make the pitch better because, of course, they need that. But my gut feeling is we may play a different style of football because we obviously don't trust playing balls to feet at home because we don't. We bypass the midfield. You go to an away game, and I'm probably open myself up to another abuse here, but when we go away from home, the games I've seen or before, we can knock the ball around. We're quite happy to pass the ball to feet away from home. We don't do it at home because, in my opinion, the pitch doesn't suit that style. So it might be not as easy. Sorry, it might not be as difficult to replace Tom Elliott, but maybe with a different type of striker.
Thank you very much. I think that rounds up all the outs. I don't think we're not expecting anyone else to be leaving, are we? There's no other names that are on the potential list, or were there?
No, I looked through the list. There was any names that were missing from it. Not really. I'm trying to think. A few fringe players. Ejikaja, who come on, by the way, filled out a lot. He has. Doesn't mean he's fat. He just feels he's filled out a bit. He might be good for next season. But no, I don't think. I'll say just a Joe McDonnell one. And that is, we're just now waiting and hoping that we don't get approached by any teams nicking our players that we don't want to lose.
Who are most likely to be those being sniffed at by other clubs? Lyle, Jake,
Tom. They're the ones, aren't they? They're our big performers. Jonathan Meads outside.
I was going to say Meads, yeah. I
think the only thing we are safe on is that Meadsy would probably struggle with a medical, and that's being truthful. I think I sense that we may get away with losing John because of his knee injuries and stuff like that. So whether he would go through a medical, maybe that thing, and that's just my gut feeling. We may get John we show a lot of loyalty, and Jonathan Meads does seem to fear fat that he wants to repay that back. So I think we might get away with that. But yeah, Jake, Lyle, and Tom Elliott, which if we lost one of them, I can live with it. If we lost two, they're big influences this season.
Okay, we are running very late, Stu.
Never.
What you meant? You're not listening. What you meant to say now? We're running late,
but we're sounding great.
Oh, well done, magic. So let's get on to Poleon Go.
Oh dear. What are we going to do if Don Poleon goes, by the way, Nick, in the summer?
No one is irreplaceable, Stu. I'm sure we will come up with something. There will be some other game we can play. I don't know. I'll think of something, don't worry. Something will turn up. Okay,
cool.
But anyway,
Good
what's
news.
more important things? A return once again this week for Poleon Go for Alexa Bliss's theme song. Congratulations, Alexa, on claiming the Raw Women's Championship on Sunday. Stu, she is the first woman to hold both the SmackDown and Raw Women's Championships. Quite an achievement, I think you'd agree.
Well done to the lady.
To the lady. She has a name.
Can we call her a lady? Is she a lady?
Yes, of course she is.
Does she act like a lady in the ring?
In the wrestling ring?
In the wrestling ring, of course.
No. In other senses...
Moving on.
Let's move on. Poleon Go this week. Let me get my clues. Here we go. Right, first one is Dom... Cryptic clue, as we know. Dom feels a real sense of pride visiting this stadium. There you go.
Derby County?
No.
Damn, it was never going to be that easy, was it?
It was never going to be that easy. It's a cryptic clue. Okay, clue number 2. Dom has been told that the ground is approaching its 25th anniversary, and he's impressed because it's holding up very well.
25th anniversary? That would make it, what, 92?
Roughly.
What grounds were built in 92?
There's no pressure this week, but Chris did get it after one clue.
Yeah, but I'm rubbish at this game, and Chris probably cheated. What is...
Well, do you know what? I'm not going to lie, we were going to cheat. But if Chris didn't get it after the first clue, I was going to tell him what it was anyway. But he did actually genuinely get it after the first clue.
I'm going to go for somewhere like Middlesbrough.
No, it's not Middlesbrough, I'm afraid. I think Dom might have already been to Middlesbrough this season, but anyway. Last one, before the anagram. Dom is in the upper tier of the away end, which he finds quite steep. It's almost like he has a pigeon's eye view of the game.
Really?
Yeah, well, instead of a bird's eye view, it's like a pigeon's eye view for a reason.
I haven't got a clue. When's Dom going, by the way? Because the quicker this game goes, the better for me. Sorry, Dom.
We'll just do the same game. We'll just change the name of it.
Oh.
Go on.
I haven't got a clue.
Okay, anagram.
Yeah.
Hen, wed, net. Hen, wed, net. Are you actually writing this down to try and figure it out?
No. No, I haven't got a clue.
It rhymes with hen.
Hen? Den.
Keep saying it as if you're like Alan Partridge. Den! Den! Den!
The new Den.
Which is the ground of...
Millwall.
Hooray.
Is that built in 92?
93, I think.
Wow, that's survived a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I thought. When I read that, I thought, blimey, it doesn't look that old when you go there.
Where's the pigeon reference from, then?
Because if you remembered that Jonathan Mead was sent off in this game, but you have forgotten the most famous part about Millwall away this season.
Oh, yeah, but that's not fair, because I didn't go to an away game.
Yeah, but you remembered that Meadsy was sent off.
Yeah, because I saw that on the highlights. I didn't see a highlight of a pigeon walking around a pitch.
Apparently, that was the only highlight of that game.
I'm surprised the Millwall fans allowed it to stay on the pitch and they didn't throw some stones at it.
And they probably were, but they were probably missing. But congratulations, Millwall, for getting to the playoffs, bloody guy. Which links us nicely on actually to the playoffs, because they start, well, if this podcast goes out on Thursday, tonight, if you're listening as it's been released, which a few of you have mentioned to us that you do on a Thursday morning, starts with Bradford versus Fleetwood and Millwall versus Scunthorpe. So well done, Millwall and Scunthorpe. Good luck with those two midweek fixtures you've got to encounter with each other in the playoffs. And
just out of curiosity, sorry to cut across you there, why are they being done on the same day at the same time?
I don't know. I have a feeling, I think we talked about this the other day, I think it was pointed out to me that I thought it was to do with Sky wanting the final day of the season for every league on the TV, and the only way to do that was to move the end of the season forward for one division.
Yeah.
But it's something to do with Wembley and its availability this season, and that is why playoffs can't happen. One of the playoffs can't happen on that weekend with the others, so they had to move League One a week forward, which messes up the whole calendar.
Yeah, real shame, isn't it? So who's your bet on going through?
For me, it all depends on how Fleetwood went into that final day of the season. If they went into it expecting to go up automatically, then you'll have a situation like Accrington last season. But if they went into it realistically and thought the likelihood is we're going to be in the playoffs and let's look ahead to that, then I think they've got a great chance. I don't fancy Millwall or Scunthorpe, I've got to be honest. I think the winner will come from Bradford or Fleetwood. And if you were to ask me if I was going to put money on it because they've got more experience in these things, or no, Fleetwood went up. I don't know. Let's go. I'm going to go Bradford.
I'm going to go Fleetwood.
Oh, there we go. That's good. Then we can have a little bit of a see who was correct.
Yeah, and the reason I go on that is I just think Roster's done a great job. Low expectation. Scunthorpe, chokers. Millwall, I just think they had a real... if you're conceding 3 goals in the final game of the season, I think you're going to be in problems. And my logic is, I just don't see how 3 big clubs are going to leave League One. I think one of the big clubs is going to not go up, and that would be Bradford for me.
Who do you think is coming down from the Championship? Is it going to be Blackburn, who are currently in the relegation zone, Nottingham Forest, or Birmingham? Birmingham are away at Bristol City on the last day. Forest are at home to Ipswich, and Blackburn are away at Brentford.
If you look at the fixtures, I think Blackburn are the favourites to come down purely because of the fixtures. I can see Norwich winning at home. I can see Bristol City beating Birmingham.
That's great for Norwich, but what have they got to do with anything?
Norwich?
Yeah.
Did I say Norwich?
Yes, you said Norwich, yes.
Oh, sorry. So anyway, Nottingham Forest would beat... Are they playing now? I forgot
Ipswich.
That's the word. Nottingham Forest would beat Ipswich. I can see Bristol City beating Birmingham, but the big one is if Blackburn stay. Although, doesn't it? I'm just trying to think out loud now. No, it goes on goal difference, doesn't it? But if Nottingham Forest win, which I think they will, I think Blackburn lose away to Brentford, and that would be Blackburn. It's a shame because if I had a choice between visiting Blackburn or Nottingham Forest, I would love to go to Nottingham Forest. But Blackburn. I think what it says, right, is that you can't keep having mismanagement at the top of football clubs and expect to keep getting away with it. And that's what's happened to Blackburn with the Indian owners, isn't it?
It has. It is a big shame. We would talk about the playoffs in League Two, but it's still as clear as mud. Luton and... that all got very muddled in my mouth. That doesn't even make any sense. You can tell I'm tired and I need to really wrap this up quickly, don't I?
Yes.
Luton and Exeter are guaranteed not only playoff places, but they are guaranteed to be at home in the second leg of their playoffs now. So there's all the teams in the top half, other than the top 5, are in with a chance of being in the playoffs. I think it's Carlisle and Blackpool that hold those places at the moment. There's too many permutations. We're not going to go through them all now. Just to say, Luton and Exeter, I am going to imagine, again, that the winners of the playoffs will come from those two clubs. And on form... you do actually have to prefer Exeter at this moment in time. But Luton are finishing fairly strongly, so we shall see. It's going to be very interesting. I think that brings us to the end of this week's show.
It does.
Do you know, every week I think and I say that word again, think. Every week, I swear I say, I think that brings us to the end. I don't think it. That is me saying, it's the end of the show.
Yeah, you're in control, Nick.
Well, that's dangerous, isn't it? Thank you very much for joining us this week. Lots of little mentions we have to get through at the end of this week's show. I have to say, Stu, your article that you did for the What Fanzine has finally gone up on our website, 9yrspodcast.org.
Superb.
Youth team update, so you can go and check that one out. Check that one up? I really do need to stop, don't I? Check that one out now, if you would be so kind. Thank you very much. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Search for 9YRS Podcast. And on Twitter and Facebook, just before we started recording this evening, I put on those channels your opportunity to send us your 3-word reports for the season as a whole. And we'll read out the best ones on next week's show, which I believe is probably going to be our final one, isn't it?
Yay!
Next week.
Why are you
cheering at?
We need a break. We've been going all season. It's been a long... The players have been talking about what a long season it's been, but we didn't have much of a break, did we, last year for Wembley? So we get a break and then have a nice summer break of doing nothing, Nick.
Doing nothing?
Absolutely nothing.
I think there's something fairly big happening in the summer. But...
yeah, we play Eastleigh on the... When do we play Eastleigh? Eastleigh has been announced, isn't it? So we've got pre-season game. Pre-season game at Eastleigh.
Don't talk to me about pre-season. So yes, but anyway, hashtag Don's 3-word reports. Please have a look for those and we'll read out some of the best ones next week. Do you know what I went for, Stu? Do you know what I went for our 3-word report for the season?
No, go for it.
Strong and stable.
Yeah. I might have a go. I'm not very good with the 3-word thing, but I'll have a go, I think. Not now.
I look forward to it.
I haven't thought of it, but I'll think about it.
You've got time, don't worry. You've got a whole week to get it done. So
superb.
I think that's everything.
Yes.
Keep an eye out for our television debut.
Television debut.
How else do you say it? Somewhere
Yes.
on YouTube, Don's Play or something or other. It'll be on the social media. You'll find it one way or another. Our vlogcast for the Oldham game. Otherwise, please join us next week, where we shall be joined to you by Shadow Home Secretary Diane Abbott, who's going to talk about the £300,000 needed to build our new stadium. Sorry, hold on. The £80 million needed, I think. No. Okay, year 1, 250,000. 64.3 million, carry the 5. Year 2, 2,250, add 9 and a third. Square it. We'll see you next week.
Bad thing coming, bring you down. your way. Don't mean you gotta take it out on. I'm sorry that your day didn't go your way. Don't mean you gotta take it out on me. You're angry all the time. Stop wasting mine.
It's a good list. Good list. I like that.
Cornmouth was just for my brother, by the way.
Yeah, but I was wondering how you can get a vegetarian one in. I thought you might say like I don't know, cheesewood or something, something like that. But I don't know.
Cheese.
Wood. Oh,
Wood.
Fleetwood. That's Fleetwood.
Cheesewood. No, Cheesewood. We know what Stu spends most of his time thinking about.
Nothing wrong with a bit of cheese.
Or wood, for that matter.
Mainly cheese.
Let's move on.
Yes.